see this game, it was made with no experience. Let's go back to the beginning to see how this was possible, and stay to the end to see how you can play the game and even make your own boss fight for free and with no experience. Video games are fun, so let's make one. There are hundreds of game genres we can pick from, but RPG games are my favorite, even beating out my other favorite genre, swimming with electrical appliances. So we're gonna make an RPG game. However, they're also one of the hardest games to make. For example, Elden Ring costed $200 million, or 14亿元for my Chinese viewers, and took 300 developers 5 years. But what if we had $0, 1 idiot, and 1 month? Because how hard could it really be? If you live under a rock and don't know what an RPG is, you roll around a lot, get a cat girlfriend, fight dragons, and get a second cat girlfriend. The goal for our RPG is to make one Elden Ring quality boss fight. To make a game, you need a game engine, which is an engine for games. Yeah, you're welcome. We are going to be using Unity because it's free, has lots of tutorials, and because they threatened to sacrifice my family if I didn't use them. First step, we make it a Unity project. In order to go from this to this, we will need a player, stamina, animations, combat, health, healing, and a complex enemy AI system with circumstantial behaviors for every possibility. And let's start off by adding a cylinder with hemispherical ends, or bean. But not just any bean, a cool bean, which will be our player, and some ground so he doesn't fall into the void. But you will notice our player still can't move or look around, which is kinda like me when I talk to a girl. To give the player movement, I found this awesome movement tutorial by Dave, and we're just gonna go ahead and follow along with the tutorial. The player can now move, and it looks great. So some of the values were wrong. Now the camera no longer has the height of Drake's wiggly worm, but the player's also gonna need to be able to dodge to defeat the big scary monster that comes to get him. Cut that shit out. Therefore, we need a stamina system and a dash. To make a stamina system, you make a player stamina variable, make it equal to the max stamina at the start of the game, decrease it over time while sprinting, decrease a chunk of it while jumping or crouching, increase it over time while not sprinting, and make the player stamina variable divided by the max stamina variable how full the bar is. Boring! Shut up, nerd. We now have a stamina system for a crouch, jump, and sprint, which is very epic. I then added sliding and dashing and got them working with our stamina system. Our player is now done. The progress looks smooth sailing right now, but there's actually been 3 bugs. The first bug being the camera script in charge of rotating the player to face the direction he's moving was giving the player a seizure. Wrong game, buddy. Therefore, I spent hours checking the code and threatening ChatGPT, but nothing worked. If I couldn't get the player to work, there'd be no game. I went to sleep a failure, and when I launched the project the next day, it was working. I just needed to restart the project. The camera was the cause of another bug. It would enter the player's cranium whenever the player moved towards it. This was because the camera thought that the player's cool shades were a wall and moved in front of them, so I increased the minimum distance the camera could be to the player. The last problem was the UI couldn't be placed in the script because I needed to add a canvas group component to the UI. Either the tutorial forgot to mention this, or I have silly sausage syndrome. So far, all the bugs have been quick fixes, but I have a funny feeling implementing enemy AI might change that. The player can now dodge, but unfortunately he isn't going to be able to teabag his enemies to death, so we need to add a sword. I opened Blender and modeled a greatsword, and it turned out great, because it's a great sword. This guy stinks! The real reason it looks good is because my modeling skills improved when I made funny animations of the US presidents. Oh, you haven't seen them? Well, last month I learned Blender to make these funny animations and they're on my YouTube right now. I then give the sword to the player, but now that I'm seeing the player beside the sword, the player looks kinda ugly. It's kinda like when you start dating someone, and then you meet their family, and you say to yourself, damn, I picked the wrong family member, their lizard is way hotter. So good old Bean has been replaced, but little did I know this small change was going to cost me my sanity. This is because now that the player has arms and legs, the old animations look slightly weird, kind of like your mom. So we need an animator and animations. The animations are the easiest part since Mixamo has many free animations. Our free animations. Thank you, Mixamo. However, the animator is insanely more complicated than our current animation system. You see, when the capsule crouches, we use this 1 line of code to tell the computer to read these 2 lines of code which scale the capsule down. However, when the model crouches, we need to tell the computer which of these statements in the animator are true and which are false. The value of these statements have been assigned to control what animations we enter or exit. We do this by writing a script that turns our animator statements into hashes. This gives them a unique number name, which is done because computers like to read numbers. So if you make them read letters... Now that we have hashes, when the model crouches, we can use this 1 line of code to tell the computer to read this block of code, which gives these hashes these values to make the player crouch. But the problems don't stop there. See, the capsule only has 2 animations, and the player has 10. That's 5 times harder code for 5 times the animations equals how many brain aneurysms I got. However, the biggest challenge was getting the correct animation to play. Earlier I mentioned these statements and assigning them to control what animations we play. But how did I come up with these statements? To demonstrate this, let's play a game. When do we play the walk animation? I bet you picked C because it's the biggest answer, but it's actually D, the even bigger answer. A doesn't work because the player slowly speeds up to the max speed. The time it takes to speed up delays the animation from playing. B skips this delay by using move speed, which is the max speed the player is speeding up to. But this doesn't work because the player's max speed when idle is also the walk speed. They just aren't speeding up. D fixes this by checking if the player is pressing movement keys, which fixes our delay and idle problem. But the player is also inputting movement keys when sprinting and crouching, so that led us to the creation of these statements. Now that good old Bean has been replaced, we can get that sword working. After coding a revolutionary script from scratch and making my own animations, the player can now swing their sword, and we even have the first sound in our game. You also can't move or cancel the attack. But right now the player's fighting their demons, so we need an enemy. Mixamo has a wide variety of options, but I want the boss to look incredibly menacing. So I was debating between a fierce Viking and a steroid injecting rhino. But one option was clearly more menacing, so I imported the Viking. We now have a boss, but the player's attacks can't damage him. So we need a damage system. After a couple of colliders and an hour of nerd language, our player can now kill the boss. But before the enemy dies, we can't see if he's taking damage. Therefore, we need to add health bars and hit effects. I started by following this cool tutorial by Brackies, which provides the art for free. It turned out great, but the pixel art style didn't fit our game. Therefore, I made a mechanical heart and gave the bars a smooth gradient. But this looked even worse. I then had this idea to make the health and stamina bar look like futuristic power cells. So I opened Photoshop, spent 2 hours, and it turned out great. For the boss's health bar, I went with a simple gradient and outline. But to match the power cells, ended up changing the font and making the bar more angular, because nothing screams futuristic more than sharp angles. We only have 2 more steps before we fight our boss. But before we can add healing, our player needs to be able to take damage. So let's start with the boss's AI. I went to Google to find a tutorial on how to make a 3D boss fight in Unity, but there was nothing. Was this challenge impossible? Nope, I just watched a 2D boss fight tutorial and got ChatGPT to convert the code from 2D into 3D. I gave the jacked rhino a big bone and some animations for Mixamo, and now he can smash our player's face in. However, there were some problems, such as the boss's look at player script, which is only supposed to rotate the boss on the Y-axis to face the player, but was also rotating him on the X-axis. The player and boss were also able to move when they died. To fix this, I made them unmovable after they died, but there was a problem. The code was triggering early, which led to the boss not moving and also led to the boss giving the player back shots. So I'll save this code for later when every Steam user asks me to add settings. Anyways, I nicely asked ChatGPT to fix all the bugs, and later we're gonna add more attacks and they get crazy. Now that our player can take damage, we can add a healing system, which is really simple. We just click this button right here, and now we have inventory UI with a very original design. And our player can now heal, but we don't talk about where the sword goes. We finally have a working boss fight, but it kinda sucks, like a lot. So I got a charge and jump smash animation for Mixamo, then had ChatGPT write code for the new attacks, and it worked first try. I don't want to say I told you so, but so far all the bugs have been quick fixes, but I have a funny feeling implementing enemy AI might change that. Anyways, we got some bugs to fix. I started by fixing the charge's rotation bug, then instead of charging to the player's position at the start of the charge, I made the boss keep charging until he hit the player or the wall. For the jump smash, I had this idea to make it knock the player back, so they wouldn't get stuck in each other, but the boss must have been binge watching Brazzers, because his right hook is crazy. The jump smash wasn't gonna work, so I changed it to a jump earthquake. Instead of landing on the player and slamming their weapon, the boss now jumps away from the player and sends out a shockwave. But this led to another challenge. There's no circle-shaped hitbox. Elden Ring solves this by using hundreds of sphere colliders, but hundreds of colliders is partly why Elden Ring's frame rate is but we actually don't need a circular collider. We just need to know where the player is, and rotate one cube collider around the shockwave to be where the player is. Then make the line invisible and add a particle effect. Using Unity's particle system, a great system for making particles. But the boss fight was still too simple, so the boss will also cause a shockwave when he charges into a wall. I also found a throwing animation, and put ChatGPT to work again, until the boss was able to throw his bone. But one bone was too easy to dodge, so he now throws 3. The boss's melee attack was also very repetitive, so he now has a horizontal swing which needs to be crouched under, and a stomp which needs to be jumped over. More abilities are very cool, but right now our boss is randomly picking which ability to use, which is not cool. We need a system where the boss picks the best ability for each situation. For example, we don't want the boss to charge when within 10 meters of the player because it's undodgeable. So I reached out to my fairly paid coder, and now the boss uses the correct abilities, but he's also only using one ability every 8 seconds, which is boring. So let's add combos. After an ability is used, we pick a number, which will be how many times we instantly finish that 8-second ability cooldown. After all cooldown resets are used, we end end the combo. The AI now feels pretty good, but no boss fight is complete without a crazy second phase. So I downloaded an animation, made this particle effect, and after reaching half HP, the boss goes super mode. When in super mode, he moves quicker, attacks quicker, throws 5 bones, leaves a lava puddle where his jump smash lands, which is made by combining these 6 particle effects, plus his charge attack will now leave lava behind him, which is made by combining these 2 effects, and the rocks were made by destroying a cube in Blender. However, this effect had a problem. Try to ignore the fact I'm being cooked alive, but as you can see, the lava trail is cutting out of existence. ChatGPT told me this is a culling issue. Now you're probably thinking, what is culling? And that's a good question. Anyways, it's fixed now. The lava also lasts 30 seconds, which means moving around the arena will now be a challenge. Lastly, the rhino can now breathe fire, which makes perfect sense. I also fixed a bug with the combo system that caused the boss to use abilities when he was dead. The enemy AI is now done, but before we fight the boss, our game is in desperate need of graphics. So the player model has been deported once again, and we now have a ninja and a katana, which I made in Blender. I then gave the katana a juicy hit sound effect, which is super satisfying to use. And you might have noticed the boss attacks have sound effects too, but good luck trying to hear it over this sick boss music. And adding audio is surprisingly easy. You just add an audio component to an object, download your favorite sound, and play them with this one line of code. I then downloaded a wall model, grass model, and grass texture and placed them in the scene. And you might have noticed the sky changed. This is done by using cool images called HDRIs, more commonly known as skyboxes. They fold like spheres around your scene, and similar to how PNGs have a transparency value, skyboxes have a light value, allowing them to light up your scene. I then messed around with the placement of trees until I got something that speaks to me, so the voices in my head won't have to. Now that everything's done, here's the finished product. But right before I hit the play button, I realized we forgot the most important part, the cat girlfriend. Alright, here's the gameplay. Not even close. Earlier I mentioned how you can play the game. To do this, I uploaded a copy to itch.io. AI generation disclosure? ChatGPT, 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 ChatGPT. Nope. Anyways, the link to download the game is in the description. If you want to make your own boss fight, I put all the tutorials I used in this playlist. Next video, we're going to try to make a multiplayer horror game with proximity chat, so make sure to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to share it with your Discord e-kitten, and you'll probably enjoy this video.